Hi, I'm Coach Amber, and welcome to the MeetRx Success Story podcast. Today we have one of our own, Coach Craig, with us to talk about his success story. Welcome, Coach Craig.
Hi, how you doing today?
Great, thank you. So, Craig, give us a little bit of background on what your health was like prior to starting a meat-based diet. What was going on with your health? Did you have any issues?
My biggest problem overall has been migraine headaches. Migraine headaches have consumed me since I was roughly 20 years old. And I'm literally, thank God for answering my prayers and finding this method of eating, because this has plagued me for years, for roughly 40 years. I'm 58 years old, and I had my first migraine headache at roughly 20 years old, and I remember it significantly. I originally thought it was a sinus problem because my sinuses would get filled up, and it's a lot of pain. It's visual effects of light and sound just exacerbated things. So when I first got that, I was like, oh my gosh, what's the problem here? And subsequently from that point, in my early 20s, about 22 years old, I started to get them more often. I was also heavily into bodybuilding. So I was lifting weights all the time. So I knew I was sweating. I knew that I was expending a lot of energy. But they started to come on probably about once a month at that point in time. So about 22, 23, 24 years old. Initially, I thought it was sinus problems, went to the doctor, and they said that I had a deviated septum, and once that gets squared up, surgery on that, I won't get migraines anymore. Had the surgery, nothing happened. Headaches, migraines still there. Mid-20s to late 20s, I'm working Department of Corrections in California. I'm I was a correctional officer for 4 years, and then a parole agent for 22 years. So pretty stressful environment. And to the age of about 29, 30, they started coming on significantly more, the migraines did, and I was using sinus medication to try and quell them. Then I eventually found Excedrin migraine medication, and they're aspirin basically, it's Excedrin, and I was taking those every time a migraine would come on, and that appeared to work well. Must have been the caffeine and the aspirin together. It would stop it for the moment, or it would dull it. By the time I was 30 years old, in my 30s, I was probably taking those Excedrin migraines. I was getting them probably weekly, and I was taking those Excedrin migraines probably at least once to twice a week, 3 pills at a time, 6 pills at a time. At nighttime, if I got one, I would be taking 3 or 6 to try and go back to sleep, but then the caffeine would keep me awake. So I would take ZQL at night to go back to sleep. So I'm medicating myself with migraine meds, basically Excedrin, and then and all of it's over the counter, and ZQL also. So I was also had a thyroid problem in my mid 30s. I had a goiter, and so they ended up taking out half of my thyroid. So that was an issue. And then after that, I was told that I had sleep apnea. So I was diagnosed with sleep apnea, and they tried to put me on a machine. Back then, the machines weren't that great. They were real loud. Couldn't use it very well, so I didn't. Got to about my early 40s, and right when I turned 40, I was going to the Police Olympics doing powerlifting bench press contests. And so for diet, during all of these times, as anybody who's been into lifting weights, you're doing high carb, you're doing carb loading, I was clean. I thought I was clean, but I was on the standard American diet, but I was doing high carb, low fat. I was raised on high carb, low fat. My parents, my mom, it was all low fat. It was a standard American diet. And so when I did the Police Olympics, I'm doing more carbs, carb loading. And at that point in time, I was about 275 pounds. And so I figured I could go into the open division. So I was going to eat everything to get stronger to end up in the open division. So on the day I weighed in, I was 309 pounds. And I was strong. There's no doubt about it. I was super strong, but I was fat. I remember feeling just fat. And so I immediately after the bench press contest, I dropped my weight back down to 270, 265, which is what I used to carry all the time. And in my 40s, I was getting migraines every day. At that point in time, I'm getting them every day. I'm taking Excedrin migraine every day. Doing the Z-Quil probably every other night. Some nights, if I didn't want to do the Excedrin migraine because I was worried about the aspirin, I'd be sleeping on the side of my bed, on my knees, trying to just get some sleep. So the migraines were really, really bad. I also had a dual quad rupture at 41 years old, which put me out of business for about almost a year. I had to fix my knees and stuff on that. The worst situation, this is where it got to my diet being changed, was we could retire at 50 years old in law enforcement. So I was about 51 and a half and I was planning on retiring. And about 2 weeks in of December of 2013, I remember it clearly, I felt something real bad pain in my stomach. I thought I could wait. I didn't want to call in sick because I was going to retire at the end of the month anyway. So I did not call in sick, and I waited about 12 days in excruciating pain in my stomach. And finally I went to the doctor. They said I had a ruptured appendix. So they said it was fortunate I didn't die. I was in the hospital for a week with them cleaning all of my organs. The doctor told me that they literally went inside and had to clean all the organs from the poison from the ruptured appendix. And so the recovery from that, I remember it was 2013, the recovery from that, a week's worth of antibiotics going in me. I get back home, I'm working out, doing my stuff, but I wasn't feeling well. I could tell I wasn't feeling well. Migraines every day. I decided, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and see a neurologist and all my problems should be over. They put me on Botox injections. They gave me Topamax. They gave me nerve blocks. I did that whole routine for 2 years with, if anything, it made things worse because I wasn't feeling well. And it just was one thing after another. And so my next surgery was turbinate reduction surgery in my sinuses. So they said, oh, once you get that, your sinus headaches will be gone. So I'm thinking I'm getting sinus headaches. I'm thinking I'm getting cervogenic headaches, which are from lifting weights. And they're all migraines. It's just all forms of migraine. And my next worst thing that really put me over the edge was I had a incisional hernia from the surgery. And so they decided to put the plastic mesh in my gut. And I had a reaction to it and it became infected. And once it was infected, I went back and they said, well, what we'll try and do is we'll go ahead and put you on a machine that actually sucks out all the stuff in your wound, a wound vac machine, that's what it's called. And then they also put me on a 24-hour antibiotic pump that was inserted into my arm. 6 weeks I had antibiotics going through my system in order for them to kill that. I was never the same eating food again after that. So I went back to eating vegetables. I'm thinking a clean diet. I always ate eggs. I always did lean protein like chicken. So a lot of broccoli, a lot of cauliflower, a lot of vegetables throughout this whole thing. And I'm feeling worse because I'm getting GERD from all of that stuff. I'm getting IBS. I'm like, oh my gosh, what's going on? I literally for 1 week was awake at night because all this was coming to a head. So I didn't get any sleep for a week. And like I said, I mean, it was like my prayers were answered from God. I was praying because I was so frustrated. So I didn't know what, could save me on this situation. And literally after all my prayers, that's why I say I thank God, I went on the computer and I typed in electrolytes and migraines. And a lady by the name of Dr. Angela Stanton popped up. And she has a Facebook group for migraineurs. And her protocol is at that point in time, this was about 2017, her protocol was low carb or keto. So you could do a low carb a way of eating if you, weren't about trying to go to keto, or you could do keto. And I started with low carb for probably a couple months. And then I went right to keto. And I'll tell you, I started to get some health back. I mean, I started to notice little things. The migraines weren't gone, but they were feeling a little bit better. They were dulled, or there was a little bit time in between them. So the dummy that I am, I said, I'm going to go cold turkey off of everything that I'm taking. I'm not going to take any more Excedrin. I'm not going to take anything. I stopped the Botox, all the Topamax, all of that stuff. And let me tell you, and I did keto. Let me tell you though, as I'm getting better, there were other things that got worse. So the migraines were getting better, but because I'm not taking Excedrin, I had to literally let the migraines go through their whole course. So it would be a 3-day episode all the time. And you had day 1 and day 2 where the migraine was really bad. Day 2 being the worst. Day 1 is when it was initially coming on, and day 3 was the hangover. And so I had that process going on for months. I was sleeping with literally with an ice pack under my neck. Sometimes the migraines got so bad that I would be standing up because I couldn't lay down. So that's how brutal the migraines were. Probably a year into keto, Angela Stanton had been reading about Dr. Baker's carnivore approach, and she started looking into it, and she included that as part of her protocol. The thing great about Angela Stanton is this is a free Facebook group where she's helping thousands of people cure their migraines through these approaches. And she told me, she says, he's a weightlifter. He does all this stuff too. She says, it's probably an approach that you should take because it's very similar to what he does. And so I decided to do carnivore. So that was around June of 2018 that I did carnivore. So I was probably 8 months into keto, and I started carnivore, and things were getting better. I still was not sleeping through the night. I still was trying to use my CPAP machine and trying to get results from that. But the sinus headaches that I would get would be hard for the CPAP. So it was like kind of this, this cycle that was hard because I couldn't get the sleep to heal. The nutrition was slowly healing me, but without the sleep, it was a slow process. With the sleep, there's a dramatic process, because I'll get to right now, probably, so 2018, June, I'm doing carnivore. I was not eating enough. I didn't realize that. Again, I'm a technical person. So I started thinking, I got to go count calories. Those are my bodybuilding days. And okay, I'm supposed to consume 3,200 for my height and weight and for my activity level. And so I'm sticking there. And with keto, honestly, and even carnivore, I wasn't hungry, but I wasn't full. So taking, Dr. Baker's approach to the whole thing, I started to eat more until I was basically satiated. And I started to notice that my healing was going even quicker. So now at this point, I've been going forward all the way to right now. I had one migraine in the last 4 months. Prior to that, it was like 50% better, 80% better, 90% better. But the amazing part of what I'm saying right now is that not only am I migraine free, but I'm sleeping at night. I'm sleeping with maybe one wake up. On a bad night, maybe 2 wake ups at night. So I'm getting a 4-hour chunk and then waking up and then getting another 4-hour chunk. And I can notice in the morning that I don't have the heavy head. That was a whole other part of migraines that a lot of people who don't have them don't understand. It's not just the head pounding. It's not just the headache. It's the fact that you can't think well. It's the heavy head in the morning. It's the heavy head when one's coming on, or you hope one doesn't come on. And I don't get that now. I mean, I have been 4 months without that heavy head. And it's just, to me, that's an amazing feat. So yeah, that pretty much answers that question, hopefully.
Awesome. I'm so glad things are improving for you for sure. Okay, so when you first started carnivore, how did you implement it? Kind of give us an idea of like what a day of meals look like for you. What do you include? What do you not include? And when you switched over and started eating fattier cuts of meat and et cetera, did you have any transitional issues?
Yeah, that's the thing. Is as simple as this carnivore seems to be. It's not really simple in the sense that that's why coaches are needed, because the experience in actually going through it, you can kind of talk about things like whether you're doing high fat or if you're doing a 1 gram of protein to 1 gram of fat, where you're more of a, macros being about 67% fat. When I first started, I tried to keep my macros up to the keto macros, like 80% fat. What I noticed when I first started eating as much red meat as I was eating, that transition was difficult as my bowels and my that whole system, because I was starting to get diarrhea. And so then what I did was I was learning that there could have been a bunch of different things causing that, from their HCl production to not being used to meat, and a bunch of things. And so for me, it was, I didn't have enough HCl. I realized in my whole life, I was always eating lean cuts of protein. I was always eating chicken breast, maybe would have a steak once a month. And when I did eat the steak at that time, I would have diarrhea. And so I thought, yep, red meat's bad for you. Got to stick to my chicken, got to stick to my fish, got to stick to my vegetables. And it was actually the opposite. It was that my body just was not used to red meat. And so it wasn't producing the HCl to digest it. So I kind of, learned a couple of the hacks for doing that stuff. So at first I was actually reintroducing fiber into my diet to get me from having the diarrhea. So I would be doing a lot of red meat. I was doing the macros of 80% for fat, but I was having like avocado to try and make my bowel movements better. And slowly I didn't take the avocado anymore, and they were getting better. The next problem though was my gallbladder really couldn't take all of the fat. So then I had to fix that aspect of it. And it got to the point where I am now, so originally what I did was I brought my protein up, my fat down, so that my gallbladder could slowly get acclimated to the high fat. So then I brought the protein back, it kept the protein where it was at, brought the fat back up, and worked through the diarrhea and all of the other issues that the high fat caused. And now it's gotten much better, and I can notice that the healing process is there. So as far as the answer of what foods I'm eating, pretty much I'm very hardcore in terms of, I don't have a problem sticking to, I mean, if you told me that, eating my glasses is going to help me be healthy, I'll eat my glasses. So I have no problem doing something difficult. So, but what I do is my meals consist of either 2 to 3 meals a day. If it's a weight training day, then I do 3 meals a day. And I usually, my first meal is about a 1.5 pounds to 2 pounds of ground beef. And I'll have sardines, a can of sardines with that. My afternoon meal would be, I usually have about 65 grams of chicken liver. And then I eat another 1.5 pounds of ground beef, or I'll have a ribeye. And I was taking in like 2 egg yolks a day also. I've kind of cut back on that because I just want 0 carbs pretty much in my diet. So that's where I am at now. And I keep my fat. I'll eat beef suet as well to balance out the fat in my meal.
Perfect. Okay, so you did talk a little bit about some of your improvements, like your sleep and your migraines, but were there any other improvements that you noticed? And was there anything that kind of stuck out to you that surprised you that you weren't expecting?
The other improvements, obviously, were the gut improvements. I never realized how much the gut was, involved in everything, including the head, the whole electrolyte process. All of that improved my gut. And also my sinuses. I noticed, it's as weird as this seems, if my gut's not literally processing my food correctly, and I massage my stomach to help it process the food or to help it move down, I can feel it in my head. I feel like a little bit heavy-headed if stuff's not moving. And as it does move, I feel the heavy-headedness go away, which is really strange. But one thing carnivore has done, it's made you in tune to your body. Because it's such a broken down basic diet, you're in tune to everything that you put in, everything that you do. One of the surprises that I had was the electrolytes. All through my keto and all through the beginning of my carnivore, I had a hard time trying to balance my electrolytes. Always having to supplement with water. So with a thing of water, I'd take an eighth of a teaspoon of salt. On days I was working out, I could feel the headaches come on, so I'd load up on salt. It was just, I tried the potassium, but that was worse. And then I kind of learned that once you do potassium, you're offsetting your sodium. So you don't want to start messing with a bunch of your electrolytes, because one will cause, another one to be imbalanced. And surprisingly, as time went on, I actually was able to reduce my sodium and just take it during my meals, and I'm fine. It's like I don't need to, add it into my, into my water throughout the day. Now it's wintertime here, but still I'm in California, so it's warm enough to where I'm sweating, and I'll see how it goes during the summer. But I've never had to not balance. That had been my most difficult part of this diet with keto and everything else, was balancing my electrolytes. And to know that my body has fixed itself in the sense that, okay, now you're sleeping, your electrolytes are balancing at night, your body is used to utilizing the high potassium meat, and then balancing the sodium with just, salting in those meals. That was my biggest surprise.
Awesome. Okay, so since you are a member of MeatRx, can you talk a little bit about what do you consider to be some of the benefits that you've personally noticed?
The benefits that I see is the resources that MeatRx has. I like they have recipes for different things. My wife is carnivore, a little bit more keto, but she's pretty much carnivore, and my 25-year-old son is as well. So there are recipes on there that help to make that a little bit more manageable for people who are foodies, because both of them are foodies. I'm not. Like I said, I could eat whatever you tell me to, as long as it makes me better. The other resources, I like reading the stories, the success stories of people, and just to have a kind of place that you can go to that has answers to questions that you have. That's what MeatRx is great for, all of that stuff. So for me, the resources are the best.
I agree with you 100% on that. Okay, so since you are a coach as well, can you give us a little bit of an idea of what your coaching philosophy is? Like, if somebody wanted to have you as a coach, what would they expect?
My philosophy is I'm pretty laid back. I understand all people have been broken differently in terms of their bodies, whether they were vegan or standard American diet or whatever. Whatever they had done in the past, if they were athletes, we're all broken differently. The first thing I try and do with everybody is to find out what their goals are. Is their goal just to lose weight? Is their goal to enhance their athletic ability? Is their goal to fix some metabolic problems that they have? Because all of them will be slightly different in terms of what you're doing it for. And fortunately, I've been an athlete. My son's an athlete. My wife's an athlete. With my son, being only 25 years old, I've been able to watch his approach and do an approach for him that works for him. And with my wife being female, obviously she's going to be a different approach for her regarding hormones and fat and all of those type of things. And then myself being 58 years old and going through all of the different surgeries that I've had, I can just from firsthand experience tell people what those effects are. So I need to know what their goals are. And then the most important thing in the coaching philosophy is for people not to get discouraged. My story is not a 3 months and I'm all fixed story. And if you read those stories, you kind of get discouraged when you don't get those results right away. And when you realize you have to look at the small successes and realize that sometimes you're gonna also go backwards, and it takes going backwards to get ahead. So with my migraines, that's how I was. It was sometimes I was having a week that was worse, and I didn't have a coach to talk to about that, but I did have the Facebook group with Angela Stanton, and it was good to know that there are other people that have that journey that's longer. I guess the one thing I always say is it didn't take 3 months for me to get broken. It took 40 years. So you're not going to get fixed in 3 months. In some cases, maybe 4 years. You don't want that to be discouraging to people. I look at it like now I've got a quality of life I never had before. And it was just a 3.5 year investment to do that. And at 58, that's great. I'll take it.
Perfect. I love that. Okay, y'all. So if you're looking for a coach, go check out Coach Craig. Give him a try. And Craig, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your story.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Bye, Craig.
Bye-bye.